Given the historical facts, what's happened in the past, what are you expecting Washington to do?
Well, I'm really not expecting them to boycott these games. I think the president of the United States, Joe Biden, is someone who appreciates the importance of the Olympics, and he loves sports, I think, in much the same ways that John Howard, when he was Prime Minister of Australia, loved sport. And I think we've got a bitter taste still in our mouths as a country from having boycotted the games in 1980. So I'd be very surprised if it happened in 2022.
Still, we continue to have these talks and debates. We have more activists also pressuring sponsors to drop the Beijing Olympics. What will all of this controversy around the Beijing Olympics do to, say, sponsorship and what it means for the Olympics in 2022?
Well, controversy is not unknown to the IOC. Almost every games that they stage is met by protest, and it varies from and the era of the day. I think that the IOC and the National Olympic Committees of the various countries that are involved have really learned how to kind of go through this political minefield. It's never comfortable, but I think it's something that they've all come to expect and understand is a part of having something as big as the Olympics and viewed by as many people from around the world every 2 years when the games are held.
So does this continue to be, a viable risk to be taken by sponsors?
I think so. I think they know that there are very few properties, sports properties in the world that reach as many countries as the Olympics does. When I was the chief marketing officer for the U.S. Olympic Committee for the 2008 Summer Games in Beijing, I think we had 205 countries that marched in the opening ceremonies. And the games, I think at that time, were seen by something in the vicinity of 4 billion people saw some portion of the Olympics. I think that when you're a sponsor and you can have that kind of involvement by the world and be seen by that many people, your sponsorship becomes pretty relevant.
So, of course, we are just over 100 days out from Tokyo. We continue to see Japan in various parts struggle to get a lid over the virus, right? Given that there are no foreign visitors, given just the huge amount of controversy and kind of drama going into whether or not these games will go ahead, has the shine been taken off the Olympics brand somewhat?
It's a really great question, and I'm not convinced that it has. I think you will find people who can say that, but I believe the Olympics are so special. I mean, it dates back to 776 BC. This is something that has really been a part of the world, for so many years, and that's an understatement. These games managed to go on, and they managed to thrill us because of the things that happen. We see world records. We see the world's best athletes, not just one country's athletes. And even with the World Cup in football, you really only see a handful of countries there. These are games that unite the world, and I think that's the IOC's mission. And they frequently seek to be seen as a peace organization that actually spreads a goodwill of its own sort across the world.
Rick, why couldn't the IOC delay it another year, given that you have to put so many restrictions on the games this year, not to mention that public sentiment across Japan doesn't seem to be too favorable?
Well, you start to back up into other games. So you've got Beijing in 22, and then you've got Paris in 24, and you've got a lot of investors who are looking for ways to get their money back out. In other words, their return on investment. And I think the challenge for the IOC is they've already been postponed once. They don't want these games canceled in any way. And I think they're willing to do almost anything to try and stage these games, because a cancellation is going to be ruinous for, I think, a lot of countries and a lot of companies.